It is a first down. Pirates.
You can paint this one purple. What an incredible win by the ECU Pirates.
Welcome into Blackbeard's Alley, a Pirate football podcast. We appreciate everyone tuning in. East Carolina victorious over the Charlotte 49ers, 48-22. The Pirates got out to a 28-0 lead early in the second quarter. And then, as Blake Harrell said it in his post-game remarks to the team, it was, quote, sloppy as hell. But and it definitely was. The Pirates will definitely have to clean a lot of things up if they're going to take care of business this Saturday, 4 o'clock kickoff against the Memphis Tigers. But right now, taking a look back with me at this Charlotte game, as well as talking about Letterwinners weekend, which was last weekend, of course, on homecoming weekend against Charlotte. I'd like to welcome to the show Mike McCalop. Mike, we appreciate your time.
Thanks, Bubba. Glad to be here.
No doubt. Of course, you remember that Peach Bowl team your senior season. You played for the Pirates from 88 to 91 for Art Baker as well as Bill Lewis primarily. So just tell us about Letterwinners weekend. I've heard John Gilbert and others talk about how it was the best turnout that there's been in several years.
Yeah, I think the turnout was great. When you saw the Letterman's Walk, you had a bunch of different generations of Pirates going through it. You saw some that were from as early as the early 70s and up until the late 2000s. So it was great to see all those iterations of Pirate football all together, and I think it's a good atmosphere for everyone to see that, hey, we come back, we support the team, and once a Pirate, always a Pirate.
One of the cool things about Saturday's game, something I know, I'm guessing that you loved, and that is the helmet that the Pirates wore. It's the first time that helmet had been worn since 1997. It, of course, I guess it'd come into existence your sophomore season in 1989 under Bill Lewis, and then been worn from 89 to 97. What did you think about those uniforms?
I love the nod to to the past, all the retro and throwback uniforms that schools do. I think they're very cool. Talking about the history, the actual logo, I don't care for it. Never did, but I mean, it was what it was, and I think it was well done. I always loved us coming out in all purple underneath Art Baker. Uh, Bill Lewis was more of a contemporary, and he wanted things, a certain way, which was fine. But that's how we got those particular uniforms. And yeah, I love the way they did it. It was great to see their iteration of that uniform playing today still.
Not to get into too big of a discussion about uniforms and get down that rabbit hole, because it can certainly be that with some folks, but since the flying ECU logo isn't necessarily your favorite out of the helmets that the Pirates wear, whether it's the one with the modern Jolly Roger or the script Pirates, or which helmet is your favorite?
I am old school. The helmets that actually go back to the 60s with the pirate with the dagger in the mouth are some of my favorites. you can't go wrong with the skull and crossbones. Those are my favorites personally.
Gotcha.
Because they stand out more.
Right. As you say, we of course are the only Pirates in the FBS, and that's something we have a very unique and awesome brand to promote everything we have going on in East Carolina, and very, very unique. But taking a look at this game, as I mentioned, the Pirates got off to a very fast start, which is something you always want to see, but especially when you're playing a team that you're supposed to dominate. You came out and, for the most part, did that, leading 28-0 there, 2 or 3 minutes into the second quarter. You came out on your opening drive, went right down the field. You did have the benefit of a penalty, but you took advantage of it. And then on the second drive, it looked like ECU may have to settle for a field goal, but then Charlotte had a penalty. And then we decided to go for it, and Katenhauser found Anthony Smith in the back right corner of the end zone on a drag route.
All right. Like Coach Harrell said, it was a really fast start. There were a lot of good things as far as the way they moved and the pace of the game. But there was definitely a lot to fix. There was definitely many things that you saw that, like you say, if they're going to have any chance of knocking Memphis off, they're going to have to get right quick. The pace of the game, I think, in the beginning threw Charlotte off. But, hey, Bubba, let's be honest. Charlotte's not a very good team. So if we're being honest about it, you got to look at, the teams that we faced and we've done well against versus the teams that we have lost to. We really haven't done well against the teams that have a winning record. And, I mean, that's the measuring stick. If you're going to measure yourself, if you got to win the big games against big opponents. So that's what they've got to look for next week. You got a big opponent, one that was in the top 25. So you definitely need to win this game to have any chance at the conference championship. And that's what every school should go for every year, is to win your conference.
Yeah, to your point, we definitely have taken care of business in a big way against those teams we were supposed to. Our best wins to this point, I guess, Temple, Army, and then Coastal Carolina, even though at the time Coastal's a much different team than they are now. They had a quarterback situation, had a third quarterback come into the mix, and they've played much better since we beat them 38-0 down in Conway. But those wins over Temple and Army are definitely our best. And Memphis, though, different animal. They're coming in 8-2. They had that loss against UAB down in Birmingham, very surprising. And then their only other loss was to Tulane last Friday night at the Liberty Bowl, 38-32, a game in which Tulane led big, and then Memphis came storming back and nearly pulled it out. But as far as the Pirates are concerned, taking a look at things, all those areas that were deficiencies early in the season, too many penalties. The Pirates have really, really improved in that area. They've really taken care of the ground game. Definitely room for improvement, but that's steadily improved as the season has gone along. And then I guess the thing that was an issue and has been an issue, was not surprising to see Charlotte throw for some yards, and I think they threw for about 275, 280, did Grayson Loftus. But Pirates giving up 3 or 4 big pass plays. Out of that 275 or 80 yards, I'd say probably about 150 to 60 of it came on 3 plays.
You're absolutely correct. There were big chunk plays. I guess what stood out on all 3 of those plays, there was absolutely no pass rush on all 3 of those plays. The quarterback for Charlotte had all the time in the world to let the route develop and to let it go. I understand we don't have a premier pass rusher, but to your point, our secondary is not the best, but they definitely try very hard. You see the work and dedication that they're doing. But with that being said, if you know that your secondary is somewhat of a weakness, then you're going to have to create a pass rush, whether that's bringing exotic blitzes or just giving the perception of blitzes. That nothing confuses the offensive line more than if you bring 7 men up at the line and then at the snap of the ball, bunch drop back. Okay, who do I block? None of that was shown. None of that was done. You have to do something to stress the offense, to just line up and give them, hey, you block here, you block here, you block here, and to know that there's not going to be any type of change. I mean, I think I saw ECU overload one side of the line once the entire game. I mean, they've got to come up with something on defense to create some pressure. Otherwise, Memphis is just going to just bombs away.
Yeah, Charlotte's first touchdown, that was fairly predictable from my standpoint. They had the ball, I don't know, probably about our 45-yard line, 4th and 6, and we were in zero coverage, totally man coverage, no safety in the middle of the field. And as soon as I saw that, I had a feeling it wasn't going to be good, especially as Grayson Loftus and then Javen Nicholas and the talented LSU transfer for Charlotte. They had shown that they can make some plays, and they definitely did there, and did throughout the afternoon. Nicholas as well as Sean Brown, but yeah, that was something that Blake addressed in the post game. He said that was on him, that especially given the 4 touchdown lead, that was poor on his part to go man coverage and not have a safety in the middle of the field. But I guess just prior to that, we talked about the defensive back play. How about Tymeer Brown making a heck of a play, because we just turned it over on downs, and Charlotte had a little momentum, but we quickly squelched that with the pick 6 by Tymeer.
Yes, and that's what I mean. You have the guys that have the talent, but nobody can cover forever. So you just have to give them some help. With that being said, I'm not throwing shade on the defensive line. Defensive line, I think, especially the down 4, gives good pressure for who and what they are. It's just you have to be able to get that quarterback off his spot, and that's not happening right now. So with that being said, zone coverage, 2 safeties, just cover 2, up by 28, definitely, like you said, was something that you absolutely needed and didn't happen. So they can't make that kind of error if they are lucky enough to get a lead against Memphis.
I talked about the improvement in the ground game, also penalties, and other areas that ECU has significantly improved, and that's red zone production. That was really an issue the first 4 or 5 games of the season, but the Pirates started to get that squared away, even though they lost at Tulane, scored all 3 times in the red zone, and 2 of those being touchdowns. And since then, I think we're perfect as far as scoring every time we get in the red zone, and the majority of those have been touchdowns. Any thoughts there?
You got to give kudos to Coach Harrell. I mean, uh, the fact that they have improved in that area is a true reflection on him. Good teams don't kill themselves, and that's coaching. You make sure that your team knows we don't, basically kick ourselves. We don't hurt ourselves. We don't lose games. And he has proven why, that interim tag was taken off and that he's the right man for the job. Um, as far as the red zone, hey, when you get in the red zone, you have to take advantage of that. I mean, that's what any good team does, whether you want touchdowns, but you have to come away with points. And so far, they have done that uh, on a regular basis. I just would like to see um, a little bit more game friendly style of controlling the time of possession. I mean, that is what the run game is for. I understand they want to play with pace, they want to play with rhythm, but there's going to be times when you need to slow that pace down simply because you need to control the clock and it be in your favor.
Yeah, no doubt. Like we were discussing off the air, being able to play at different paces, and it's kind of like a pitcher being able to have 3 and 4 pitches in his arsenal, where it's not just always a fastball.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. That ability to have an arsenal of different pitches keeps teams guessing, just like it keeps a batter guessing. When you're able to slow it down, speed it up, slow it down, speed it up, defense and a defensive coordinator has no idea how you're going to proceed, and therefore they have to coach differently. When you're going in with pace and you're going with rhythm, hey, I've got to be able to get my calls in quick. When you're slowing it down, hey, now it's going to be a methodical game. Hey, when it looks like run, now it's pass, and vice versa. I think their use of pace is a good thing because it definitely keeps defenses on their heels, but at the same time, it can't always be that frenetic pace because the time of possession now goes where it's almost even, and you always want that on your side.
Kind of looking at the big picture here, and talked about how the Pirates have handled business in those games that they were supposed to, or the 50-50 games, such as Temple, but or what the outside would have looked at as a 50-50 game, because Blake Harrell was pretty adamant about how Temple's comments regarding that being a 50-50 game, and it really motivated us even more so. But undoubtedly, our 3 losses have come against the 3 best teams on our schedule up to this point, being NC State, Tulane, and BYU. Touchdown losses to the Green Wave and Wolfpack, and then 34-13 loss to BYU, who has just that single loss to Texas Tech last weekend. But in those 6 wins, we're winning by an average of 30 points, and the 5 FBS wins, about 26.5 points is our margin of victory. So, really thrilled with the way we've taken care of business in those games, but we have to do the little things well in order to beat a team that's probably the best we've played so far, or maybe the second best, because obviously Tulane beat them head to head at the Liberty Bowl.
I completely agree with what you're saying. They definitely need to look at the little things and clean those things up. You are supposed to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Now, the teams that supposedly are the best teams on your schedule, hey, you judge yourself by your performances against those teams. We're 9 games into the season. This is by no means a finished product, but you should be good at things and know what you're good at and know what you're not good at this point. So you need to stick to those things, don't deviate from those things, and make sure that you keep things simple and to the point where your players are playing free and reacting, and there's no confusion about anything. Your players are just doing their job. And with that being said, I think if they do that, there's a good chance they could beat Memphis. The only problem with that is I think sometimes with that in big games, young men feel a lot of pressure. There's a lot of outside noise, especially in these days of time where social media is so prevalent. You hear a lot of things, you see a lot of things. So you can't let that outside noise change who you are as far as a team, and you can't beat yourself.
Yeah, obviously more noise than ever before with social media, and there has been for the last 15 years or so. But in kind of taking a look at another aspect of things, something that I've really enjoyed seeing this year is how the Pirates' kicking game is significantly improved, especially on the place kicking side. And Nick Mazzy coming in from UNH, and he's 11 for 13. His last 3 attempts have been makes from 46, 40, and 50 yards.
Oh, he is a breath of fresh air. I mean, I don't think there's a Pirate fan in the world that would say anything negative against this young man. We definitely have a history of kicking woes. So to see somebody that is pretty consistent and pretty automatic, hey, I am all for it. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't change a thing.
And I'm probably going to regret saying this, but I'm knocking here. We have not missed a PAT.
Yeah, Bubba, don't jinx it. Don't jinx it. Come on.
Yeah, very quickly moving on to a new topic, but going back to the red zone efficiencies, I think that can definitely be attributed to a few things. You've seen, I've referenced the continued development in the ground game. That's obviously benefited us. And then also Caton Hauser, read plays. I think he scored at least 2 touchdowns on read plays over the weekend against Charlotte. And then also a little more creativity and getting the ball to Yannick Smith. You saw we were either in the red zone or just outside of the red zone, where he had Caton Hauser line up either at running back or receiver. I think it was maybe in the slot to the boundary. And then you had Mike Wright catch the snap, roll to his left, flip the ball to Hauser, and then Hauser back to Wright. And unfortunately, it went to the 1-yard line. I wanted to see the replay of that to see whether Mike could have gotten in or not, because saw some folks saying that, oh, come on, Mike, you got to reach the end zone on that one.
It was definitely one where Mike Wright could have got to the end zone. I know the one you're talking about. I'm not really sure why he pulled up on that one. When you're that close to the end zone, you gotta let it go. I mean, it's you just got to do whatever you got to do to score. But the creativity that they're having in the red zone, you got to love that. Hauser's feet puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the defense. It's something that they literally can't defend against. So that aspect always needs to be a part of the red zone offense. I just would like to see certain times when he doesn't see his read outside of the red zone, he just takes off and gets what he can get and then gets down. But the red zone, they're doing great. They just need to, from 20 to 20, they need to be consistent more. And that consistency comes, I think, with using Yannick Smith more as a possession receiver. He's a big body. Use him that way. Anthony Smith, downfield threat. Just let it go when you and make it a jump ball sometimes with him, because I really think he's underutilized in that way. But you got to love inside the 20 what they're doing. Like you say, most of the time it's touchdowns, but they're always scoring. So you cannot be upset with the creativity that you're seeing inside the red zone.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. Something about Yannick Smith reminds me a little of another Pirate great with the last name Smith, and that is Troy Smith from the Steve Logan years there in the mid-'90s. An excellent receiver from there in Greenville at J.H. Rose High School.
Yeah, he does give you that vibe. Like I said, you love the body type. I think he is a hands receiver. He just goes and gets the ball. I just would like to see him utilized even more. Him and Anthony Smith are your two major weapons as far as your receivers. So just go all in on that and just say, hey, left, right, these are our guys, stop them.
Another aspect that bodes well for the Pirates going into Saturday is that here of late, and really throughout the season for the most part, but especially during this 3-game win streak, ECU's done an excellent job of answering. I mentioned the pick six by Tymeer Brown. That was an example on the defensive side where the defense continued momentum, but offensively, I think back when Charlotte hit that big 4th down play to make it 28-7, we proceeded to go down the field and make it 35-7 right away. And we've made it a habit of doing that for a majority of the year.
Always responding is something that, football is a game of momentum, and the momentum can turn very, very quickly. And so the fact that they're able to respond bodes well, especially if we're in a position where we're down. You've always got faith that they can respond. You talked about the 3 losses that have happened this year to 3 good teams. The loss to State, 7 points. The loss to Tulane, 7 points. And the loss to BYU. If not for all the mental errors in that game, I think that game is much, much closer. than the final score. And, that could have been a real game to a team that is a top 25 team. So if they can just clean up the little things, they can be on par with anybody that's on their schedule. But that's something that's got to be done. And now you're at a point where, hey, there is no room for error because you're down to the nitty gritty of your schedule now. You're at the end of it.
Yep. And before we shift over and talk about your career a little in the remaining time we have, any final thoughts regarding this year's Pirates? And I had one or two things about the upcoming game with the Memphis Tigers.
It's always great to be bowl eligible. You always want that, but you want to get to a point where that's a given. This year's Pirates, I love the iteration that they are. They're a dynamic team, both offensively and defensively. Uh, the style of play that they play with is really fun to watch, and you got to give it to Coach Harrell. He has changed things, so he just needs to tweak the little things. And I think this team can be very good, and the future teams can be extremely good. He's definitely proven that he is the man for the job, and I can't say enough about it.
Yeah, so many boxes checked by Blake Harrell. I was listening to a podcast and they were just speaking generally about coaches in this era and the boxes that they need to check and so forth. And I just got to thinking, I was like, well, Blake checks that one. I mean, just as far as relatability and
oh yeah, he's the everyman, and yeah, he
yeah,
he is brash without being abrasive, and he knows when to set limits. He is what you want in a head football coach.
yep. He, like you're saying, he's stern, he's firm, but he's not a drill sergeant. He realizes this is football and you have to have fun as well.
Correct. And I think that players can relate to that. Especially at this day and age, you have to be relatable to these players because they've got so many options. I mean, in the age of portals and in the age where, you've got NIL deals, you literally have to be uh, something that promotes not only your style of play, but also the program and the head coach. All three have to be there because players today got options. So, yeah, I think that it makes it ECU a very attractive destination today.
And a comment I made to my dad and some other folks just in the last couple of days, listening to Blake's remarks in the post game as well as his weekly press conference yesterday. And that is just, he's excellent he doesn't come across as, he doesn't take it too far where he's showing favoritism to certain players or anything like that, but he's very good at giving credit and doing so in a way where, a lot of times he'll get back to the players and he lets others. He's excellent at giving credit, just as far as just making sure people know that they're appreciated. And like you're saying, in this era where guys are so quick to enter the portal, um, and he knows how to play the game, so to speak.
I agree with that 100%. My offensive line coach was Steve Shankwalder, and he used to always tell me, he said, "You're only as good as your last play." anytime my head would get big, anytime I think I had done great, he was like, "What did you do on your last play?" That's really all I ever care about. So at the age of that, Coach Harrell is able to give credit where credit is due, but at the same time, not alienate the rest of his players, and that's important. That's important to know that if credit is due, it's going to be given, and that hey, it's still football is the ultimate team sport. You need all your teammates to be successful, no matter what position you play. So I think that he definitely has the right mix of qualities, both mentally and personality wise, to really promote things and to keep the, for lack of a better quote, to keep the ship sails blowing the right direction.
Yeah, of course, Coach Shank, he's serving in that alumni and high school relations role, doing an excellent job, having multiple stints at East Carolina. I think 5 or 6 head coaches. Just remarkable the connections and the knowledge that he has, and he's doing excellent things for the program in that role. I know he's keeping you guys up to date on things going on behind the scenes that may not necessarily hit the public.
Yeah, he does a great job. He reaches out, and I think especially since you're talking about players of different eras, being able to keep all that going and informed and engaged is a big thing, because you know the best programs, they keep all their players engaged, and the players come back, and the players are all engaged no matter where they go, what they do. At the best schools, you always see players from different eras on the sideline. You always hear about different players being engaged with the team. So that's what you want, and that's the kind of culture you want to promote.
Speaking of former players, a shout out here to Kevin Walker, the owner and operator of L&K Custom Homes and the East Carolina great. Um, Defensive back for the Pirates back in the early to mid 80s. Also played in the NFL, but let Kevin build your dream home today. He's a proud supporter of ECU athletics. Has been a season ticket holder for years, and KK can be contacted 336-688-8461. Again, L&K Custom Homes. Appreciate Kevin Walker's support of Blackbeard's Alley. So Mike, before we talk about your career, taking a look at what transpired in the American, as there are now 5 teams with just 1 loss. You have Navy at 5-1, so they're technically a half game up on everybody else. But North Texas, of course, beat them head to head. You had Tulane also at 4-1, South Florida, and then East Carolina. All those teams at 4-1, but Tulane beat Memphis 38-32 last Friday night, and then you had South Florida blowing out UTSA 55-23 down in Tampa on Thursday night. Rice beat UAB 24-17. Army beat Temple 14-13, and then FAU beat Tulsa 40-21. So there you have a look at what happened around the American. But shifting gears, take us back there to the late 80s. And you, of course, were recruited to East Carolina by Art Baker's staff, and then Coach Lewis came in prior to your sophomore season.
Yeah, being that time, that era was different. Coach Baker, salt of the earth. There wasn't a better man I think I've ever met. He did his best to promote his values and morals on us every day. We just didn't have a whole lot of success with the style of play that was used at that time, because the triple option, you need a special type of offense, and you need specific players to run that, and um, it's not always going to be successful, especially once you get behind, um, and so that's a reason why I guess we didn't have success early. Once he departed and was replaced by Coach Lewis uh, really opened up things, um, and um, I have to say, if you're going to give Art Baker credit for anything, the majority of that senior class that was in the Peach Bowl were recruits of Art Baker. There were just a few sprinkles of Coach Lewis, but the majority of those seniors were all Art Baker recruits. So he was a good recruiter. He was a good evaluator of talent. And without that foundation, you never have that team.
Yeah, like you're saying, I remember whether it was looking at a media guide and also seeing some of those games from '87 and '88 that may be on YouTube, uh, or highlight videos as well. Seeing guys like Robert Jones and Jeff Blake and so many of those key contributors on the yourself, obviously, guys that were part of that '88 season. What can you tell us about that culture shift? Of course, Bill Lewis was coming over from Georgia, where he had been the defensive coordinator and had so much success there, being part of a national title winning program there in the early '80s, and then pretty much consistent winners throughout that era under Vince Dooley.
It was a complete culture shift. It went from Art Baker was a very relaxed, very God fearing, very um, peaceful individual. Uh, I mean, he, even when he got upset, it didn't seem that bad. I mean, he would get upset and you would almost be able to smile at him because he was still so nice when he got upset. And it was a complete culture shift. Um, Coach Lewis ran a very tight ship. Uh, Things were extremely different from top to bottom. Um, we were very no nonsense, very straight laced. Um, Art Baker was far more free, let you be who you are. And so it was somewhat of a culture shock. But, when you're not doing very well as a program, that's what's to expected. Change is going to happen. There's too much money involved in football to have a losing program, because it affects schools' bottom lines. So every school needs to realize that if you're not winning, there's going to be a change made. You look across the landscape of football today, and you see all these head coaches getting fired for huge buyouts because the school realizes, hey, this is affecting our bottom line. We may lose $40 million here, but we don't want it to cost us $120 million down the line. So, with that being said, any program that is not winning or producing a good product can expect change. And the same was expected back in the day.
Of course, one of those ways that that discipline and so forth were instilled was in winter workouts, and I've heard some of the stories about those in Minji's, and I'm sure
Uh,
outside perhaps as well.
uh,
but 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 what are your memories of those winter workouts and everything that helped instill that discipline and attention to detail?
The winter workouts were brutal. That's a mild way of putting it. All schools get up early, work out late, but these were kind of to test you to see, really, in a lot of cases, I think in a lot of cases, how mentally tough you were, because a lot of those things were kind of excessive. Um, I mean, they just were. I mean, uh, I played football on a lot of different levels for a little bit of time. I even tried for professional teams. Uh, I just know the things that were done under Coach Lewis were above and beyond in some cases. But again, you are a losing program. A new sheriff's coming to town, so you're gonna have change. And just to give you an idea, uh, I remember we had a winter program, and I was doing a drill, and it was just a up and over, and all we're doing is jumping over a log. It's literally a piece of uh, 2x4, uh, sat down, and you're hopping over up and over it. And I'm going from side to side, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, and I land, and I remember I just heard this pop. And what I had done is I had ripped the arch out of my foot, and you know, uh, I just landed, and I just wanted to quit, but I looked over, and Coach Lewis was sitting there yelling, and I just kept going because that's what was expected, and I didn't say really anything until after everything was over. I went to the trainers, let them know, and they were like, "Why did you keep running?" And I was like, "Because I knew I couldn't quit." So, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've definitely seen things like that myself, and heard several stories. Whether it's from some of your teammates or otherwise from down through the years. And
Yeah, but that mental toughness was what uh, set that team up for success later on. So, even though it may have been excessive at the time, later on it bared fruit. So you can't say, "Hey, that wasn't needed," because again, anytime you have a coaching change, you're going to have a culture change. And if you're losing, a culture change is needed. And sometimes change is difficult.
yep. And in the 89 and 90 seasons, the Pirates won 5 games in each of those years, but there were several near misses. I think in 89, you had the near misses against Syracuse, and then also a Pitt.
Yep.
You lost on a last second field goal at Syracuse, something weird like 18-16,
Correct.
and then that Pittsburgh game, I was at that one at Old Pitt Stadium. We led 21-0, then lost 47-42. You had a huge day from Walter Wilson, and then
Incredible.
completed a pass to like the 2 or 3 yard line on the final play of the game. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely had some heartbreakers.
And
Uh,
then down at Georgia as well in 1990.
yes. Sanford Stadium, playing in Sanford Stadium was an experience. I was a little awestruck. Uh, I don't think I had ever played with that kind of atmosphere other than playing my very first college game at Florida State. But I was so nervous I didn't even realize, who and what and how many people. It's your first big time college game, so you're really kind of just stuck in the moment. But yeah, we had some heartbreakers, but again, that's you gotta keep punching, and that set up success later on.
As far as playing Florida State, you said you remembered Prime Time, or as he's known now, Coach Prime, right?
Correct. I remember we played Florida State for everything they were worth, and we had just scored to tie the game, kicked off. The place is whisper quiet, and we kick off, and he catches the ball at the 5, takes 2 steps forward, comes to a complete stop, and there was 95 yards untouched. I mean, it was one of the most amazing things I ever saw in person in my life. So, yeah, when people talk about Dion, they have no idea. Seeing him in person, he was just different.
We have a comment from a fellow East Carolina alum here that I do Jungle Tales, an ECU baseball podcast with, and that is John, better known to his teammates as Wool White. But John says, great times during your time. Football team was fun to watch. Do you remember the David Daniels epic bench presses? He and Jeff Blake would come and play with the baseball team before spring ball started.
Oh yeah, Dave Daniels was a physical specimen, and a J.H. Rose legend. But one of the hardest hits I ever had in football was David Daniels. He lined up at fullback. I was pulling on a trap play, but he had lined up 2 yards too close. So by the time I took my second step, he was at the line, and he literally blew me up. And, from that point on, I would always look back and look for David. And I'd be like, David, take 2 steps back. Because I mean, if he hit you, he was lighting you up. When I say, Mr. White's talking about his bench presses, David was, short in stature, but he was just a big ball of muscle.
Yeah, I remember him rumbling for a touchdown down at UCF as well against others, and he was kind of our version of Ironhead Hayward.
Correct. He,
Yeah.
he wasn't gonna dazzle you with his blinding speed, but yeah, he could literally run over folks. And he was a great lead blocker. He'd follow you into the hole, and yeah, he was definitely part of the cement that held our offense together.
And earlier you talked about Jeff Blake's arm, and as Coach Logan said recently on his show, The Logan Zone on 94.3 The Game, he said Jeff Blake could throw BBs through a keyhole, and just unbelievable arm strength. And John said that his throws from right field to home plate, third, wherever he was going with the baseball, and they were unbelievable. They just stood back and just watched in amazement.
Bubba, everybody, when you're talking about your teammates, and especially when you're talking about quarterbacks, you always sit there and go, there's a moment when a guy is the it guy. He's the guy that's going to be your quarterback. And we were in spring ball, and was rolling Jeff's a right-handed quarterback, and he was rolling to his left. And he got tackled and was falling. And now imagine he's falling, rolling to his opposite way, and he throws a ball falling 50 yards on a dime. I mean, on a absolute dime. He threw it over the defensive back's head, because the defensive back literally was like, there's no way he's going to be able to make this throw. Everybody else on the field was like, there's no way he's going to be able to make this throw. And yet he made it. And when he made it, we all just looked and was like, that's the guy.
I remember a throw he had against Pittsburgh. I think it may have been on the game-winning drive, but it was to Deion Johnson. It was about a 40-yard, just an absolute laser. It didn't get more than about 6 or 7 feet off the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked earlier when we were off camera. Jeff would throw so hard in practice that he would break fingers of the receivers. And that's not an exaggeration. I mean, guys would be hesitant to put their hands up if they didn't think they could catch the ball because, hey, I might get a finger broke. So, I mean, the balls were coming out hot. So, I mean, when you literally got a quarterback that throws hard enough to break your finger, that's something rare. That's something special. And Jeff was probably, I say probably, he was the best deep ball thrower I ever saw in person. And I'm talking about on any level, pro, college, anything. He was the best deep ball thrower I ever saw in person.
Yeah, he definitely had a knack for it. Not only the strong arm, but throwing it at just the right trajectory.
Correct.
As Coach Logan and Doug Martin, our former offensive coordinator, used to say, chimney balls. Because they used the same term because David Garrard also threw an excellent deep ball, and Bill Curry was referencing that when the Pirates put that beat down on Mike Leach and the Red Raiders down in the galleryfurniture.com bowl in the old Astrodome in 2000.
That was a great day.
It was. But I referenced that Pittsburgh game. I wanted to ask you specifically about that because even though at the time Ficklin Stadium, as it was before it became Dowdy Ficklin in 94, but Ficklin Stadium in 1991, there were 35,000 seats. You had some temporary bleachers, 5 or 6 rows across what is now the Boneyard end of the stadium.
Correct.
So that, as well as people sitting in the aisles, we crammed, shoehorned, if you will, 36,000 into Ficklin Stadium. And I remember you watch it now on the We Believe video on YouTube. It's unbelievable when we scored to take the lead in the 2-point conversion by Jeff, where he dove into the end zone. You can see some of you guys, offensive linemen, rolling. I think it was maybe Keith Arnold coming to the sideline in the ground. The stadium was so loud, it was literally shaking. It was like a small earthquake.
Yeah, that was unbelievable atmosphere, that Pitt game. And like you said, neither end of Dowdy Ficklin at the time was existed. You know, the Boneyard wasn't there. You didn't have what Minji's looks like, anything like today. So it was one of the most electric games for that size of a crowd I ever played in. And it was something you'll always remember.
And it was almost, even though I wasn't there, just hearing from folks that were, because unfortunately, that was when it was I guess I was 10 years old at the time, 9 or 10 years old, and playing Pop Warner football. So we were listening on the old boom box because it wasn't on TV. But I just remember it when I did finally see the highlights of the game and just seeing the way the crowd was. By that point, the crowd and students had really adopted the We Believe mantra in addition to the team. And even when we were trailing there by a touchdown before we took the ball about 90 or 95 yards, it's almost like everybody could tell what was going to happen.
Yeah, honestly, nobody had any doubts about us scoring. Jeff would get into the huddle and said, "Y'all know we're going to score. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take. So do your job." And we just moved down the field, and it was one of those things. And the play you're talking about, him scoring on, and the 2-point conversion, I did lead blocks on both of them. And I remember coming around there, and the only thing I was thinking of, I can't fuck this up. I can't fuck this up. So when he comes around on the play he scores on, I got one guy, but on the play, the 2-point conversion, I actually pick up 2 players because I was bound and determined if he didn't make it, it wasn't going to be my fault. So
But
I knew everything and everyone. It just, even though it was only, like you say, 36,000 people, it seemed like the world was watching, at least in Eastern North Carolina that day.
yeah, and at that point, both the Pirates and the Panthers were in the top 25, and that was undoubtedly the biggest game that had been played in Ficklin Stadium in a long, long time, if not ever. But what are your memories of the Peach Bowl? It's here we are, and it's understandably talked about 3.5 decades later.
My biggest memories of that, you're talking about Fulton County Stadium, the last game. That was the last game that was played there. It was home of the Braves. You got 70,000 people. It's literally so loud you can't hear the guy next to you. It's a backyard brawl. I guess the biggest memory I have is it's the fourth quarter. We're down 17. I think there's 8 or 9 minutes left, and all of the NC State fans start filing out. And I can literally remember everybody on the offensive line looking at that and going, "This ain't over." And I can't tell you how much that one act pissed all of us off as a team. Them walking out with 9 or 8 minutes left because they thought this is over. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it was just something that, hey, it was like, if we are going to lose, we're going to go down fighting. And so, with any game, anything in football is a matter of part luck, part skill, part attrition. Can you stay healthy? Can you do things the way you're supposed to? And do you have a little luck? And luck was on our side with that last kick because everybody was sitting there going, we don't want to go to overtime. Because I can speak for myself. I had to have 3 cortisone shots just to play in that game. And the last thing I wanted to do was play extra. So I was just going, miss it. Not because I thought, hey, we're going to tie this and we're going to win in overtime, because I was like, I'm tired and I don't want to play anymore. So I'd given everything I had to that game and just, yeah. But, with that being said, it turned out to be something that people can hold on to and remember and get a lot of joy. I can't tell you, over the years, just coming back and in different places. I mean, with football, you literally travel all over the country, and I'll see Pirate fans upstate New York. And, it's funny, but it's also almost like an obsession. I would be watching people and tailgate before a game, and you would see people watching that Peach Bowl game like it was live. Even though you knew what was going to happen, they were watching it just like it was happening right then in that moment. So it brings out that kind of excitement in people and that kind of joy. So it's always a good thing.
For the Pirate fans that you don't have contact with, before we wrap this up, tell folks where you are now and what you've been up to.
I currently live in Columbus, Ohio. I do corporate maintenance for an engineering company. It's called the DLZ Corporation. If you need anything built, hey, look us up. In between, I worked in North Carolina for about 20 years with Nationwide Insurance. So, uh, life has been good to me. I cannot complain at all. But I'm always, North Carolina will always be my home, and I'm always a Pirate.
Do you ever get to the Horseshoe to any games or?
Yeah, I've been to the shoe a couple weeks ago, right before coming to homecoming. I went to the OSU Penn State game.
Nice, yeah. That's something that, whether you're a fan of a certain team or not, just being a college football junkie like I am, I love going and checking out different stadiums and venues and seeing what different fan bases are all about and diving into their traditions, excuse me. And I have had the opportunity to go to a couple games there, and each time it was against Michigan in 1990 when Kirk Herbstreit was the quarterback, and then also in 1998. The 90 game was won by Michigan, and then 98 I think won by the Buckeyes. But yeah, that was a heck of an experience.
It is different here in Columbus. Ohio State fans put the lunatic in fanatic. Uh, they they and the OSU Michigan rivalry defies logic. It really does.
Yeah,
They really. I mean, I'm not a fan of NC State. Never will be. But that is a different level of rivalry. Um, People literally here in Columbus, they wrap the newborns in OSU uh, blankets, and they do the same in Michigan. It's on another level, and like you said, the different stadiums, the shoe is awesome. Uh, it is a great college football atmosphere. 110,000 of your non-closest friends, and the big house. Even though it is not the best stadium as far as the actual facilities, the sheer volume of people and the way they react to uh, the actual game is just unlike most things you'll see in college football. So if anybody has a chance, OSU or the shoe, do it.
yep. And that 98 Michigan game, to your point, as far as the crazy things you'll see, they were replacing the turf after that game. So the people that we gone with, which were OSU season ticket holders and had unbelievable seats through their business, Owens Corning, there in Newark, just outside of Columbus. We went down on the field after the game, and there was an OSU fan holding a Michigan car flag that was burning, saying "F them."
And that is nothing new. That is their rivalry. It's on that level. Burning flags. And this is a true story. Uh, I have a friend who is a big Michigan fan, and they went. This has been probably about 8 years ago. It was an OSU game, OSU Michigan game, and uh, they parked close to the shoe. They had great parking, and the game comes and goes, and Michigan loses, and I called a friend and I'm asking, what was the worst part of the game other than the loss? And they were like, my car got keyed. And literally an OSU fan went, and every car that had a Michigan plate was keyed. Yes. It, like I said, the rivalry defies logic. It really does.
The Pirate Nation, that is Mike McCalop. So Mike, any final thoughts before we wrap up this edition of Blackbeard's Alley?
If they clean up the little things, they can play with anybody, including Memphis. It's anybody's conference title, so that's the way you got to look at it. So you control what you can control, and you win the games from here on in, and you let the cards fall where they will.
Yep, well said. The Pirates currently sitting at 6-3, 4-1, and have a chance to maybe be the first team to win 9 games in the regular season since back in 2013, and just the second to do it since 2000. And there are so many more things ahead, and like potentially an opportunity to play for conference championship if everything falls just right and the Pirates take care of their business. But be sure to follow us on social media at Blackbeard Alley on X, at Blackbeard's Alley on Instagram, and then on YouTube and Spotify. We can be found by simply searching Blackbeard's Alley, a Pirate football podcast. But that will do it for this edition of the show. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Be sure to, again, like, follow, comment, and subscribe. We'll talk to you on Wednesday as we'll have Rini and Golia of ESPN to preview ECU in Memphis. But until then, and as always, go Pirates.
Go Pirates.
Painted purple all night long in Eastern North Carolina.